Welcome to the Faithful Fathering Podcast. This is Rick Wirtz, founder and president of Faithful Fathering, where we encourage and equip dads to be faithful fathers and come beside the church to reinvigorate the church on the fathering front. In this podcast series, we're discussing the good, the bad, and the ugly of social media. And, social media, as I've said, itself is not evil, but evil can certainly show up in a lot of realms. And in this particular segment, we're going to be talking about the bad associated with social media. And to help us along those lines is a young lady that's involved in child trafficking ministry, the Street Grace Ministries, Ms. Shanita Hart. Yes. Shanita, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're the outreach director in Texas for Street Grace Ministries, and you've seen a lot of the bad that's associated. Yeah. We'll get into the ugly in a little bit, which is another whole level. But talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you've seen. I know cyberbullying and those types of things go on in social media. How bad is that getting out there?
Bad. I mean, it's getting pretty bad because now social media is so available to youth. I mean, you would think you go to the schools and you think there's nothing going on, but everybody is on their phones. And believe it or not, there's right then and there, while the teacher is teaching, there's cyberbullying going on. And it's unfortunate that you can't reach all the children and let them know how important it is to not do this because of how it's affecting their peers, how it will affect you. Because at the end of the day, if you're not being a good person and you're, talking about your peers, it's going to only hurt you. At the end of the day, you'll get in trouble for it. But also, most of them started off as friends, and then these bullying starts and it just doesn't lead anywhere good. And so unfortunately, you have these platforms that they can all see who's looking at their stories, who's following them, who liked their picture, who's commenting under it. And so it can lead to nowhere good.
So there's no privacy? They don't have complete anonymity there?
Yeah, well, they can, right? If they create a fake page to pretend to be anonymous, but if you know that this person doesn't like you, you kind of have a clue of who it is. You can turn off your comment section on TikTok or on Instagram. Also in the stories, even though somebody can comment, you can also turn that off so nobody can send you a message. But I think when somebody's being targeted, it's not, they want people to respond.
Can you share an example or two of what cyberbullying really looks like?
Yeah, so cyberbullying would be, let's say, a young girl or boy comes to school and they're wearing the same shoes. The shoes are beat up because those are the only pair of shoes that their parents can afford. And somebody is taking pictures and posting it on Instagram, tagging this person and saying something like, do you see the holes in his or her shoes? And everybody's laughing. So everybody's walking around school looking at the picture, looking at the kid's shoes and laughing at them. So that child feels isolated, feel over something that they cannot control. And so, that's just one example.
Now, the cultural pressure, along those lines, whether it's the image or whatever the case may be, seems to be almost at an all-time high. How has that impacted this whole social media front, particularly in the cyberbullying area?
Yeah, I think really with this generation right now, it's at its height, because if you're not wearing the newest clothes, the latest shoes that certain influencers or people of a certain status have put out, then you're automatically deemed as lame, or, oh, you can't afford this. Oh, you can't have this. Like, your shoes are fake. Those aren't the real Jordans. And it's just all these things going back and forth because you have to dress a certain way and look a certain way in order to fit in with, your peers. And so what I say to that is, then they're not your friends. If you have to feel that you have to fit in with people or dress a certain way and look a certain way, then they're not your friends.
Right. Well, and then to continue that dialogue to the next level, you got the hypersexualization of the culture right now. How has that exacerbated the situation?
Yeah. It's I laugh because you see it all the time. And so, I mean, even on Twitter, when scrolling, most likely you're going to see, and it's not even, Twitter isn't about who you follow. It's just about what some people repost, or if somebody liked a certain video. So you're seeing these videos, inappropriate videos. Your children are seeing those, and it becomes, okay, my body has to look this way. I need to dress a certain way to show off certain parts of my body. The whole plastic surgery thing is, more and more kids are being affected by it, having lip fillers. And when you see a certain, celebrity or somebody that you like, even if it's a football player and the woman that he's dating, she's not all natural. Now, the boys are like, oh, a woman needs to look this way, and if she doesn't, then they won't date her. That's not real. And so I think explaining to your children what's real and what's not will really give them an understanding of, okay, so in order to look this way, you have to go through surgery, and that's the truth of it. And so that's why I always say communicate and be truthful. If your kids are going to be on social media, I think you should be on social media too, so that you're able to speak to them and tell them how to distinguish the truth from the lie, the reality from a fantasy.
That's a great tip. And that's so when it comes to kids and dads, what you're saying is to really be talking to each other. Don't just succumb. Don't allow the vulnerability to become a reality in your life. So now what, again, are there any particular examples that you could share that dads ought to be particularly in tune with?
Yeah, I think one thing is, fathers, if you have daughters, letting them know that they are beautiful, how they are. Social media, you want to say, you want to teach your kids not to allow social media to influence them on their appearance and how they look. Unfortunately, it will. It does. Even for adults, you see these things every single day. You see what is being heightened, and what all boys, because if your daughter is interested in boys, then she's looking at things, okay, so-and-so like this, so he must like girls that look this way. And so when it comes to that, just letting your daughters know that they are beautiful. I know you're looking at this model or this Instagram model. Well, she's not real. This is not a real image of her. We can go back to old photos, and this is how she used to look, and you see the difference. And then for your boys, speak to them about the reality of women, of, okay, I know you see these things look great. These images look amazing. There's filters, you can filter every picture that you have. There's enhancements. There's apps that you can add enhancements. You can make your waist smaller and all these different things. So if it's on social media, most likely it's not real. And so having those conversations is so important. Even if you think your child is not affected by it, I think a lot of parents will say, oh, that's not my child, or he wouldn't say that, she wouldn't, but they're children. So they're very impressionable.
Right. Now that, back up just a little bit further, that would be how are you exhibiting a healthy relationship in the home, in your marriage, right? How are you treating your bride, how your bride, and then having that conversation that, are we talking healthy relationship or are we talking a fantasy relationship? And that's, I know that I've had many young dads that had young sons that were caught up and to say, just time out a minute, where do you want to go? Do you want to go down this fantasy route, or do you want to be in a real healthy relationship? Do you have any exposure to that? Is that any other tips that you would have for dads on that reality check?
Being mindful on what you're watching, what you're saying around your sons or around your daughters. Like Rick said, those healthy relationships, a lot of children, they'll say, oh, I want something like my mom and dad, because they love each other. He's always complimenting her. He adores her. And it's showing them what reality is, and what they see on social media or on TV isn't true. And so if you're combating that for them and having those conversations, then it will become, okay, this is That's not real. So they'll be with their friends and their friends may be like, dude, look at this. And he can say, that's not real, you know? And so he has that knowledge. So now he's able to inform his friends, you know, or now she's able to inform her friends because from being a father, what you've shown them is truth. You know, we look at our parents, we're like, you know everything.
Well, we used to.
Right.
There's also, I know there's comparison going on all the time that parents can't get around. And then there's the old FOMO, you know, fear of missing out. How has social media exacerbated that?
Oh, man. I mean, you have your friends will go on trips and you maybe can't make it, or maybe your parents said you can't go to Florida for spring break with your group of friends because you guys are 16, right? And so they post one video at the beach and they're all laughing, having a great time. And so right then and there, it's like, oh my gosh, I wish I could go there, having so much fun. But come to find out, right after that video or the whole time they've been fighting, and they just posted that to make it seem as though they're having a good time, which is what everybody does. Most people will say Instagram isn't real, you know, and you never know what's going on behind scenes, behind that camera, behind that post. And so when it comes to FOMO or comparison, it is hard for it to just not happen. But I think that the more confident that a child is from the father, that the less likely they will compare. The more that if your child says, hey, dad, like I'm really interested in baseball. And if you go out and you see, okay, son, I'm gonna get you some training because I see that you see that he's not the best at baseball, but he wants to participate. So instead of having him compare himself to his other teammates, I'm going to get you some extra training. And so you'll work one-on-one, you know, these days, and then you have your practice so that he can be that player that he wants to be instead of feeling like, you know, he can't do anything about his techniques and that he's just not the best player. So we can cut that comparison by you working with your child, by you speaking confidence into your child and continuing to build them up so that they know that I know what you're thinking in your head is the opposite of who you are. And so once again, breaking things down and allowing kids to understand things in a way that I've been there, letting them know that you can truly relate, even though you're their father. Son, when I played basketball, I was horrible when I started. And then I started practicing every single day after school to where there was no one else could steal this ball from me. I was the best on the court, but I made sure I was disciplined and I did what I needed to do to become that. So if this is what you're ready for, we can do it. I'm here to work with you. And that lets a child know that, oh my gosh, my dad has been there. And also he has my back. So I know that if I'm feeling any way on the field, I can go to my dad because he understands. And so I think that's what being a father and a mentor for your child really is.
Now, if a dad has missed that to some degree, I mean, we all stumble or we're not paying enough attention in a certain area. What are some flags that suggest that there's some anxiety building up, or maybe even some depression percolating in there? What do we need to watch out for in their children?
I think if a game's coming up and no, I don't want to, or when it's time for practice, they're not excited about it anymore. You can tell that they're not trying, that they don't care. You know, when they're around their friends, they're just kind of straight faced. They look sad. And like you said, that time may have been missed. But after a while, when you really start to kind of pay attention, like he used to be so excited whenever we brought up baseball or whatever the case may be, whenever we talked about guitar lessons, he was excited. And now it's like he has no interest. Now it's time to have a conversation, not get upset and say, you know, we're paying all this money. Hey, what's going on? Is this something that you truly want to do? Having those conversations, having that safe space and that trust between both the father and the child. Trying to get to the core.
Yes. What is the resistance? Is the resistance more peer pressure or some comment somebody made? Or is it indeed, my interest has changed, type thing? So cutting through that. Okay. How about again, on the bad side of social media, I think there's a lot of attraction and distraction, even addiction on social media. What are some trends going on in social media on that side?
One, you have a lot of social media fads or challenges that people are doing. There was a time I was at the grocery store and I saw it was a young girl and a guy, and he had a camera. And as soon as I saw them, I said, oh, they're doing a TikTok or something, because people are now doing these pranks to strangers at the grocery store or the gas station and not expecting a certain reaction because they see other people doing it and it's funny, it's humorous. And so she's asking inappropriate questions to strangers and now they're getting upset, and she ended up getting kicked out of the store. And so it's just, let's use wisdom. Not everybody's having the best day. So just because you may think something is funny does not mean that it's funny to others. And then that addiction, you can scroll on TikTok and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to only be on here for 10 minutes. And you look up and you're like, oh, it's been an hour. Or Instagram, the moment you don't have your phone, your parents take your phone away. It's like you're missing out on everything. You have no idea what's going on in the world until you're able to start scrolling. So that right there is an addiction. You feel like you have to be on social media in order to know what is the latest trends, what the celebrities are doing, what's the news, what's going on, and just keeping up to date with your friends. You have to be on social media. So it can become very addictive, just spending hours and hours. And so that's why it's important to allow a certain amount of screen time. Okay. And so after you get home from school, after homework, before dinner, you got an hour.
So let's talk about that now. How can we really manage this without being over discipline, I'm trying to say
overprotective,
and that's how you want to allow a child to get used to and learn from their mistakes.
Right.
But at the same time, you don't want to enable an addiction. So what are some practical tips that you might give dads?
I think starting out, especially if you have younger children, I know if they're already teenagers now and you try to enforce this, they're going to be like, where is this coming from? And the world is ending. But they will survive. So I think,
and dads too. A lot of times we have to be scrolling that thing on dinner time. That isn't healthy.
And it's not. I think having, when it's dinner time, when it's family time, having that designated time. And I know a lot of fathers are busy with work, but in the time that you are home, have it to where it's like, okay, dad's home, phone's in the drawer. It's time for us to spend time together and really having that family time, but also that lets your kids know, okay, when we're all together, there's no phones. I don't need to pay attention to what's going on. This is a normal thing. During dinner time, phones are put away. Phones are not allowed at the dinner table. Having that charging station in the living room, so that at the end of the night, the phones are downstairs. Or I say, have them locked away, because I know as a teenager, I'm sneaking downstairs and I'm going to get my phone.
Oh, goodness. You mean a teenager doesn't just do exactly what they're told.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's using that wisdom. I heard a lot of parents, it's just like, no, they'll be fine. And they just put it in the drawer. And I'm just like, you were a teenager before. You were young before. So let's go back and think of what you would have done if this was your parent. You would have went and found your phone, so put it somewhere that they can't find it. And when the morning comes, here's your phone. So they don't have it, even if it's a tablet as well. Nothing good happens after midnight. And we speak about this in our trainings as well. So when it comes to your youth, it's time to put up all the electronics, because who are you talking to after midnight? What games are you if you're playing the game? So you can have a chat room with people you don't know that can easily say that they go to your school, and it's not true, because there's been many of cases like that, and we'll get further into that. But you want to create a sense of unity within the household to where they know that they don't have to be on their phones, and that's just a given rule. So that hour is enough for them. It doesn't become excessive, and they realize, oh, I haven't even been on Instagram all day, and they can go about their day easily.
Right. So what you're saying is they come home, they do a little of the homework, we eat dinner together as a family, which is one of the biggest communication times possible with a family. and then they might have an hour after dinner
Yeah.
to be on their social media and do
Yeah.
the rest of their homework. But then everything gets locked up, everything's
Yes.
put away.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that's a pretty hard line.
I
That's
mean,
how many folks you think if we got everybody to do that,
Mm-hmm.
you think we'd get the social media bad under control?
I think that we could. Kids use social media. It becomes something that you do if you're bored, or if you have nothing to do, or if it's a distraction, right? And so if you have these certain rules within your household that it's like, okay, well, I can't, it's a normal thing. So being on social media is normal right now. But if you have that younger generation to where, okay, you're raising them up, you can set the tone now, instead of allowing it, because it just goes into, it's like, I need to be on social media. They have every Snapchat, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and they're just scrolling. But what are your grades? How are you at school? Are you still scrolling? So they need to see that there is a time and a place.
Idle time allows idols in.
Yes,
Right? And
that's right.
And these little G gods start to take over our kids' minds.
Yeah.
And ourselves too. I mean, this has been quite an adjustment even for adults to get used to social media
Right.
and how to manage it. So those fabulous tips. And
Yeah.
I hate to see the bad percolating. And of course, we're going to get into the ugly here in the next
Yes.
segment. But Dad, you heard some great tips again from Shanita to manage it well. Do take the hard lines, set the appropriate boundaries, and manage those boundaries. And that'll be the leadership that your kids need. And even maybe you need to tighten up your own controls for how you're leading by example. So take control and manage it well. That's the dad you're called to be, and that's the dad the next generation needs. God bless, Godspeed.